there, guys, gals, and non-binary pals. It would help if I had my mic up to my face. Let's try this. Hey there, guys, gals, and non-binary pals. Gianna here. Thank you so much for being a part of this Patreon live stream for the September Book Club. The book this month is Poor Things by Alistair Gray. So let's get into it. So this book came out originally in 1992. I wanted to compare the book to the film, but I couldn't get into the film. I had trouble watching it because of all of the special effects. It was making my head hurt, giving me a little bit of trouble that way. So, unfortunately, I haven't seen the movie, which is disappointing to me because I had been curious how they did the resolution of the two narrators. So, this book, we'll start with the description on the back. In the 1880s in Glasgow, Scotland, a medical student, Archibald McCandless, finds himself enchanted by the intriguing creature known as Bella Baxter. Supposedly the product of a fiendish scientist, Godwin Baxter, Bella was resurrected for the sole purpose of fulfilling the whim factor. As Archibald's desire turns into obsession, his motives to Bella are revealed to be as selfish as those of Godwin, who claims her body and soul. But Bella has her own passions to pursue, passions that take her to aristocratic casinos, low-life Alexandria, and a Parisian bordello, reaching an interrupted climax in a Scottish church. Exploring her station as a woman in the shadow of the patriarchy, Bella knows it is up to her to free herself and to decide what meaning, if any, true love has in her life. So that is this book. Yeah, it's an interesting book. It's an interesting story. The author maintains that he wrote it as that it's the true story, that he found this diary of McCandless and the subsequent follow-up to it and wrote it down, and that's what it is. It's also got these really neat illustrations in it. So McCandless, it has some letters in there. And then it's got illustrations of various medical nature. So getting into the book, what I have from my notes is a woman was found dead in a river, 9 months pregnant. The brain of the fetus was placed in the adult's body through a Frankenstein-esque procedure. Bella Baxter turns out to be more clever and cunning than anyone can imagine. She agrees to a hasty engagement, then elopes with another man, leading him on a debaucherous tour of Europe. This story goes on letting you think of Bella one way, when in reality, there's a single chapter in the back of the book that lets you know that's from her point of view that refutes everything that you've just read. So the book goes on this far. So this far in the book is told from one perspective, and that's that Bella's a wanton, and that she's all this, that, and the other, and that she's got the mind of a child, and she's just this pure, innocent, doe-eyed creature. But then this part of the book is Bella refuting it. And this is actually my favorite part of the book. It is a letter from Victoria McCandless, MD, to her eldest surviving descendant in 1974, correcting what she claims are errors in episodes from the early life of a Scottish public health officer by her late husband, Archibald McCandless, MD. And it says, "Dear grand or great-grandchild, by 1974, my 3 strong, sprouting lads will be dead or senile, so all other surviving members of the McCandless dynasty will have 2 grandfathers and 4 great-grandfathers, and will easily laugh at the apparition of one. I cannot laugh at this book. I shudder at it and thank the life force that my late husband had just a single copy printed and bound. I have burned every scrap I could find of the original manuscript and would have burned this too, as he suggests in his verse on the flyleaf, but alas, it is almost the only evidence left that the poor fool existed. So she goes on to correct everything he said in the book. And then there's notes critical and historical, talking about, which is the author talking about things, the actual author, Aleister Gray, talking about things. But my favorite part of the book is Bella's comeuppance towards the people that did her wrong. One second. Let's see. Hold on, things are getting a little bit crazy. Let's try that, see if our guest can join us. Let's see. Share. Copy. Oh, there we go. Perfect. Okay. So, hi there. Glad you could join us. Sorry about the technical difficulties there. I was just going over Poor Things by Aleister Gray. So, I'm in hacker voice. I love it. I was just talking about my favorite part of the book is essentially that for the first, this part of the book, this much of the book, you think it's going one way and that the character of Bella Baxter is one person and that all this, that, and the other is going on. And then you get to the last part of the book and it's actually her side of the story refuting everything you've just read. So, I'd be interested to hear if you've seen the movie or read the book. Like I was saying before, I tried to read the book. Sorry, there's a cat causing problems in the background. I tried to watch the movie rather, and I couldn't get through it because it was so CG heavy that it was just hard to look at for me because everything was heavily edited and heavily this way and that way and the other way, and it was just, I couldn't get into it. I tried. I really did. But I would say the 3 words to describe this book would be unreliable narration. Yeah, it does look like something. This is the movie cover here, and it's got her kind of climbing out of the body. So you've got the normal portrait here, and then you've got her head climbing out. I think this is in reference to the fact that the pretense of it is that there was a woman found 9 months pregnant, drowned in a river, apparent suicide, and Godwin, what was his name again? Godwin Baxter takes the brain of the fetus and puts it in the body of the woman, and in this Frankenstein-esque surgery that he has these two bunnies, Flopsy and Mopsy, that are each half of each other. That's how we're introduced to his experiments. And so, but it's an interesting idea because when the brain isn't focusing all of its energy on growing the body, when the body's already grown up, the brain can continue to grow and expand and learn at alarming exponential rates, that she gets very fast, very quick, that she says at one point that he's only been gone a week, but for her it feels like years because she's grown up so much. My favorite moment in the book is the comeuppance at the end, where she refutes everything that happened in the first 2/3 of the book. That yes, he's saying this, but he's saying this because it puts him in a better light, and it makes me seem like this shrinking violet, and it makes me seem this way and that way and this other way. My least favorite part was honestly when she runs off with Wetter and goes after him, and she essentially leads him on this debaucherous tour of Europe and breaks him. And I just thought that was, having read the whole book now that I know it's exaggerated to the point of making her look bad, that Wetter was already of infirm mind when they set off, and this just exacerbated things, that she didn't break him, he was already broken. So this is a Frankenstein retelling. I had seen a short a while back that said that it was essentially a remake of Frankenhooker from, I think that was in the 80s, that they make a woman of the night through Frankenstein-esque surgeries. And it's the fact that she becomes a courtesan in France, it's not too far off there. So I'd be interested to hear what your favorite Frankenstein adaptations or rephrasings or rehashings or rebuilds would be. So as far as this book goes, there's not so much on the making of Bella Baxter so much as it is on her Penny Dreadful Frankenstein. I loved Penny Dreadful. It was really good. It was surprising to me that, I think that's, what's his name? Josh Hartnett, that he could act, because he was this big hot heartthrob when I was a teenager, and everybody was so in love with him that I just kind of wrote him off as not being able to act. And then I saw Penny Dreadful, and he was actually a good actor, if I'm thinking of the right person. So, but it's more her mind growing rather than growing her, and experimenting and trial and error, that Godwin experiments on the bunnies and then he goes straight into a person, and it works. It's a resounding success. He wants to control her, and then she meets McCandless, and he instantly falls in love with her because she's gorgeous and she has the brain of a child, so he can shape her and mold her and groom her into what he wants, which is really creepy. I found that really just icky in the book. And so she runs off with Wetters, who is of infirm mind, but it takes an immediate liking to her, but doesn't minx around and pretend that it's for her own good or pretend that it's in any way anything other than what it is. So, and then Wedderburn breaks, and she comes back and she says, and eventually she becomes a doctor, and she's very accomplished and striving for excellence under the heavy weight of the patriarchy in the most beautiful way. That this book came out in 1992, and for a book written in the 90s by a male author, it is surprisingly fresh in that last bit of it, that it feels like the first 2/3 of it that are written from McCandless's point of view are written almost pro-patriarchy, that she should be cared for and confined and controlled and all these things. And then in hers, she has power, she has agency, she's setting the record straight and saying, yeah, that's how they felt, but I was using them as much as they were using me. That I'm a person, I'm a flawed person, but I am still a person, I'm my own person. And I found that, especially for the time period that the book comes from, the 30 years ago now, that it's refreshing, because it's a take that we're seeing more and more in literature that's coming out. You have Circe, you have Stoneblind, you have Cymbeline, all of these, Lady Macbeth, which is one I'll be reading soon, that are very much giving the female characters agency over their own selves and over what happens to them. That there's a trope in writing, that you can tell a female character is written badly if you can replace her with a fridge and it doesn't change too much. That so often what you get with, especially with male writers, but female writers and non-binary writers, I'm sure, have been guilty of it the same way, where you have your male protagonist talking to a female character, and she's just a neutral mask for him to monologue onto. That you can literally replace her with a piece of furniture, and other than the occasional, oh, but you can do it, which with a smart fridge, you could probably program it to do that for you. Nothing changes in the scene. That you don't need the character in the scene. You don't need this developed character, that this character isn't developed at all, that they're not adding anything. And to read the first 2/3 of the book, and she's very much a refrigerator, and then to read the end of the book and realize that, oh, she's not a refrigerator, she's a person, was very, like I say, it's very refreshing. I was satisfied with the book's ending because it subverts it with the unreliable narration. That you've read this whole book, and frankly, I was kind of disappointed in it, until I got to the ending, and then it turns everything on its head, and then I'm like, oh, okay, I can get behind this. I had fairly low expectations for this especially once I got a couple chapters into it, because the male characters are just, there's a line in 10 Things I Hate About You that Patrick Verona says to Cameron. They says, what is it with this girl? Does she have beer flavored nipples or what? And that's very much the beer flavored nipples trope, that everybody is in love with her, everybody wants to be her, everyone wants to be with her, everybody is obsessed with Bella Baxter. And at the end of it, she's just a refrigerator. So I didn't have very high expectations, and they lowered and lowered and lowered until I got towards the end of the book. It has pretty good pacing. I wish that Bella Baxter's refutation was a little longer and more detailed, but it is supposed to be a handwritten letter, not a larger manuscript. So it does make sense. But I do wish that we had gotten her voice more. The book altered my perspective in a way that I wasn't expecting. That it gave me things to think about in my own writing, that how I could play into the unreliable narrator, but not give away my whole hand that the narrator is unreliable, which I think could be really interesting from my own writing. That essentially having multiple narrators and having, because Bella admits that she's not a reliable narrator too, that essentially this book is, there's three sides to a story. There's yours, mine, and the truth. And it's very much that aspect to it. And one of the central themes is patriarchy and owning and controlling women versus women having agency. And it gives you an interesting thing to think about. And as in terms of my own writing, being who I am, I don't tend to have a very patriarchal slant to my writing, just because of who I am. But yeah, this one was really good. It gave me a lot to think about from a story crafting point of view, from a point of view of writing and story crafting and storytelling, more than it did the actual story. That I felt the crafting of the story was much more interesting than the story itself, which does happen. I've had that with Hemingway and with Margaret Atwood, that the way they craft their stories is far more interesting to me than their actual stories. That I found Old Man and the Sea quite boring. But I really like the way he puts words together, the way he chooses words, the way he crafts. I like it. I 100% agree with Hemingway. Yes, I read several Hemingway books, and yes, it's a well-told story, but the story itself isn't good. Thank you. Someone gets it. That there's so much more to storytelling than just the story. There's the way you tell it, what you tell, what you don't tell, what you leave up to the audience's imagination. And the book, I guess it's just the nature of books over a visual medium, that there's so many gaps for your brain to fill in. Even a Tolkien or a George R.R. Martin, where you have pages and pages and pages of description, there's still gaps, and there's still your own point of view, where you read something as maroon. Well, to me, maroon is a darkish red. To other people, maroon is more of a darkish reddish brown. Some people think it's brown. Some people think it's purple, more purpley. That everybody sees it with their own cognitive biases. And it's a very interesting storytelling method, I guess, is what I'm trying to say as I'm rambling on. I would be interested in reading more from this author. Unfortunately, he did pass away back in 2019, so he won't be gracing us with more books, but I will be looking up his back catalog. And this one I do recommend. I give it a solid 4 out of 5 stars from me. That it's very well written. It's well crafted. There are places where the story kind of lags. There are places that could be better. But most of those are in McCandless's telling, that Bella Baxter's telling. They have very unique voices, that they have very unique point of views. They have very unique voices from a literary point of view, that I would recommend this book for reading. That being said, I don't know if I'll be reading it again anytime soon. I did purchase the book, but I actually listened to it as a library book in audio format from my local library because I forgot to pack it on a dog sit the week I was supposed to be reading it. So I listened to it, and I'd probably pick it up from the library again because it's interesting. I just don't think it's one I can reread again quickly. So I'd love to hear what sort of books you've been reading, if you've been reading books, if you've been reading fanfic, like what are you reading right now? I'd love to hear. Right now I'm reading A Rake Like You by Becky Michaels. It's a Regency romance novel. It's the sequel to Lady August, and it's just a fun romp. So it's a fun one to read. She's got a very interesting point of view. The first book, Lady August, was a grumpy ex-sunshine trope. This one is a grumpy ex-grumpy, and it's kind of a second chance also. So just finished the second Becca Cooper book by Tamara Pierce. Yes, Tamara Pierce! I love Tamara Pierce. I have behind me, if I can figure out how to turn, I have... where did it go? Did I move it? Oh, The Will of the Empress, which is like 4 of her books. My grandmother got me a Tamara Pierce book because the lady at Walden Books, rest in peace Walden Books, told her it was good for someone my age. And then I spent all of my pocket money buying every Tamara Pierce book I could get my hands on. This isn't your favorite series, but there's a lot to like in it. I haven't met a Tamara Pierce book that I didn't fall in love with. There's something exquisite about her writing style, about the way she writes and the way she crafts characters. There's also something a little sapphic, which I very much appreciate, especially in children's literature. I don't know if it's intentional or not, but I always got kind of sapphic vibes from it, especially from, who is it, Alana? I think, Protector of the Small series. I got kind of sapphic vibes from that one. Oh, this one has a trans character in it. That's interesting. I haven't read the Becca Coopers, but I will have to add them to my list and keep an eye out at Half Price and Barnes & Noble and all the various places I consume books from. They're taking over again, as you can see. I've got some there. I've got some there. There's this bookcase. There's a stack on this side of the desk. There's a stack over there, just off camera. And then I've got 4 or 5 other bookcases full, including one short bookcase like the one with my Hobbit dolls behind me, that is just to be read books. So, yes, Tamara Pierce is bae. I love Tamara Pierce so much. I just finished Lock Every Door, which is kind of a horror thriller by Riley Sager. It was very good. It's honestly, it's 5 stars. I'll be reviewing that one on YouTube for Spooky Books of October. I want to thank you for being here. Your support means more than you know. I love getting to talk about books with anybody. Anybody who will listen to me talk about books. Books are one of my favorite things. I love being able to turn off reality for a period of time and just lose myself in a book, good, bad, indifferent. When I was a kid, I used to joke that I would read anything that moved slowly enough, and that's still a little bit true. Thank you so much for coming on this journey with me. Next month's book will be, let me double check. The Pairing by Casey McQuiston, which is she tends to write queer romances. She wrote, I am drawing a blank. I'm sorry. It's been a bad POTS day for me. So I am drawing a blank, but she writes queer romance novels. So that is October's. I hope you'll join me for it. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye.